Hi there. In this question we are looking at interpreting models, linear models. So let's take a look at this. So a taxi firm uses the following formula to calculate the cost of a journey. C equals 6 plus 1.2d, where C is the cost in pounds and d is the distance in kilometres. Interpret the meaning of the coefficients 6 and 1.2. Alright, so this is the equation of a straight line, okay? And if we were to plot this with cost on the y-axis and distance on the x-axis, what would it look like? Well, the coefficient in front of the d is 1.2, so that's our gradient, and 6 is our y-intercept. So it's going to look like this. Now, what we can't simply do is say 6 is the y-intercept and 1.2 is the gradient. So that's not an interpretation of the meaning. When you're asked to discuss interpretations or explain meanings, it must be in the context of the question. So you've got to say, in the context of the question, which is a taxi firm and the cost of a journey, what do these things mean? Well, this 6 here, so it's the y-intercept, so that would be the cost if you did 0 distance. Well, obviously no one takes a journey of 0 distances, so we don't want to explain it like that. But if you've ever got into a taxi before, you'll notice that the cost on the meter usually starts at a certain point. It usually doesn't start at 0. So you might describe 6 as the starting cost, or sometimes we call it the fixed cost. So we could say that 6 is the cost at the start of the journey. So that's what the taxi meter starts at. Now what about the 1.2? Well, the 1.2 is the gradient. And when we talked about gradients earlier on in this chapter, I said that a good way to interpret the gradient is to say that for every 1 unit you go along, you go up by whatever the gradient is. Now, I've not drawn this proportionally very well, but what that means is if you go 1 kilometre further, then you pay £1.2 more. Now, what you don't want to say is that 1.2 means it's £1.2 per kilometre, because that would ignore the 6 at the start. What you want to do is say for every additional kilometre travelled, the cost increases by 1.2. So really, whenever you're interpreting a gradient, you really should begin by saying for every additional, or for every extra. So try to begin these interpretation questions always with those words. For every additional kilometre travelled, the cost increases by £1.20. So that's a great way to explain what that 1.2 means. So now we've got the full picture. The starting cost is £6, and then for each additional kilometre you travel, you pay an extra £1.20. And of course there could be further questions saying, how much would it cost to travel 8 kilometres, or someone took a journey and they paid £15, how far did they travel? We're not going to do those now, just wanted to focus on the interpretation of these questions. Well, that's all for this chapter on straight lines. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you stick around for the next chapter, so I look forward to seeing you there.